In the last episode, I started to notice something that I hadn't noticed before. There was a kind of presence that wasn't coming from effort, something that was just aware. And once I noticed it, I couldn't ignore it because it didn't fit in how I understood anything. Around that same time, I was still reading, trying to understand what was happening through everything that I had learned. Dispenza, Pema, Chödrön, sitting with those ideas and trying to make sense of this experience. And both of them, in very different ways, were pointing towards something real. Dispenza talked about changing your internal state, your patterns. Chödrön pointed toward sitting with what is, not resisting, not turning away. And I had spent years trying to apply each of those, trying to change, trying to allow. But what I was experiencing now didn't quite match either one because I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't trying to change my state, and I wasn't trying to accept it either. And yet, something was shifting, and that's what stayed with me. Because if something was changing, and it wasn't coming from effort, then where was it coming from? So I started looking again, not for another method, but for what these teachings were actually pointing to. Because both of them, in their own way, were moving attention away from control towards something quieter, something you don't force. But neither one had ever led me to notice something like this as something that was there, something present. Because all the frameworks I had were still built around me doing something, even if that something was letting go. But this didn't feel like something I was doing. It felt like something I was encountering. And that's where something began to shift again. Because I started to wonder, what if the change wasn't coming from the technique at all? What if the change was coming from something that the technique was bringing me into contact with without ever naming it? Something that had been there the whole time, but that I had never related to directly. Not because it wasn't real, but because it was never pointed to as real. And that's when it started to become clear. This wasn't just something I was experiencing anymore. It was the beginning of a different way of understanding my place in it. If this resonates with you, I've created something to help you explore it more directly. You'll find it in the link in the description.